and our ultimate aim is that my patient should feel better. So what kind of understanding of prana that has helped me in my clinical practice, I am just going to share with you. It need not necessarily be correct. Okay. So before we go into the detail, just a very quick revision. Whenever we want to start anything, we describe one shloka by Patanjali, where Patanjali gives a definition of this thing. So Patanjali in the second chapter of Sadhana Pada tells us that pranayama is tasmin sati shwasa prashwasa gatir vichedah pranayama. Now every word that Patanjali uses is for a purpose, and there is a lot of depth to it. So when Patanjali says tasmin sati, it means that after having achieved that. So what is that? So just before this shloka, the shloka says tato dvandva anabhighatah. Just before this shloka, the shloka that comes is tato dvandva anabhighatah. This means that by doing that, a person is able to transcend or overcome the forces of duality in nature. So pleasure and pain, hot and cold, those kind of dual forces, a person will be able to transcend by doing that. By doing what? So you have to go to the previous shloka, where he says, a shloka before that says, Prayatna shaithilyam ananta samapatti-bhyam. Drop the effort and expand your consciousness to infinity. While doing what? So then the shloka before that comes, which says, what does the shloka say before that?
Tasmin sati shwasa prashwa. No, that's sthiram sukham asanam.
So the shloka before that comes, that is sthiram sukham asanam. So Patanjali has described asana, its process and its result in the previous 3 shlokas. And after that, he is now talking about pranayama. So therefore, when he says tasmin sati, it means that you have practiced asana, you have dropped the effort and expanded your consciousness to infinity, and you have reached such level of stability and comfort in your asana that you are transcending the forces of duality of nature, that is pleasure and pain, hot and cold. So you have become very, very stable anatomically, physiologically. Then after that, pranayama is to be practiced. Okay? So this is the meaning of the word tasmin sati. Having achieved that, having achieved sthiram sukham asanam, prayatna shaithilyam, ananta samapatti, dvandva anabhighatah, then you are ready to do pranayama. Therefore, a asana is never complete if in the final posture you have not dropped the effort to remain in the posture and merge your consciousness to infinite, or expanded yourself, imagining an infinite, space, and merging yourself mentally with it, your posture becomes more concretized. So therefore, cognition is a very important part of asana which we have forgotten. So Patanjali's asana is not at all physical. It has a psychophysical component, and the psyche component here is actually the physical effort. Initially is to come in the effort, there is effort, but after that immediately he says that you have to become effortless. Prayatna should be shaithilya. You have drop all the effort and then expand the mind. You will naturally be able to remain in the posture longer, and the longer you remain, the lesser you will be affected by the symptoms of the body, the pleasure and pains of the body. Okay. Now, tasmin sati. Then says shwasa prashwasa. Shwasa is breathing in, prashwasa is breathing out. Shwasa prashwasa. Gati. Gati is speed. And vicheda means bringing a break into that. So after having achieved stable posture, you have to bring a break in the inhaled and the exhaled air. Now these breaks are in different way. One vicheda of the gati is by simply maintaining the same rhythm but simply slowing it down. Okay, so you gati has to be reduced. It means you have put the accelerator. So first what you do, you reduce the accelerator, right? So you are reducing the speed, you have reached zero. Correct? So what is happening is the way your breath is coming in, it has become so slow that you are not even able to feel that you are breathing in. You are breathing out so slowly that nobody can even make out, looking at you from outside, whether you are breathing in or breathing out. See, by one step that you are doing pranayama is when you sit and you do pranayama. Okay, this nostril changing was not told by Patanjali. Okay, you sit still, focus on your breath, and now start your breath in such a way that a person sitting besides you should not be able to make out whether you are breathing in or breathing out. Is it possible to take breath in such a way that a person besides you who is not able to make out whether you are breathing in or breathing out? Is it possible? How many of you agree? Just show thumbs up that it is possible. Yes, it is possible. You can breathe so slowly. So slowly you can breathe inch by inch the breath can come in, and inch by inch it can go out, so that any moment of the time a person looks at you, you appear still. It doesn't appear that you are breathing. So in a way, this gati vicheda makes a person breathless, means without breath. He will appear like a statue, like a rock. This happens, no? When you look at the watch, it is only the second hand that appears to be moving. The other two hands never move, but they are moving, right? So your breath also becomes like that. It moves, but it doesn't move. That is a kind of a state which is the gati vicheda. Now this is a way where the natural flow of the breath is made so slow that you cannot make out the movement. The other step here is that you voluntarily start bringing pauses into the breath. The pause can come before inhalation, after exhalation, So in those moments that you have exhaled and yet you have not inhaled, there is a pause. And then you have inhaled but you are yet to exhale, there is a pause. So this breathing in, that air is called as puraka. Breathing out is called as a rechaka. Breathing in is puraka, breathing out is rechaka, and stoppage of the breath between these two processes is called as kumbhaka. So rechaka, kumbhaka, puraka, kumbhaka. We do this 4-16-8-4 breathing, where we breathe in for 4 count, hold for 16 count, breathe out in 8 count again. So this is another way in which the control over the prana or the breath is achieved. Now, literally telling you the meaning of the word pranayama is pranayama. Ayama means stretching. So stretching the prana. So here literally the whole application of the word prana in this sense is related to the breath. Okay. Now the other question that comes is, why is breath, so important? So important and so intimately connected to prana. See, many people told that our understanding of prana is when a person dies, when he leaves the body, the prana is gone. A difference between a fresh leaf and a dry leaf. There is some energy that is there, but it is very intimately connected to the breath. So as soon as the prana goes, the breath also stops. Okay. So even physiologically, people may say that even heart may keep beating, for some time, things may go on for some time. But unless you support it by external ventilator, the breathing process immediately stops as the person dies. So it is very intimately connected to the movement of the prana and the circulation of the prana in the body, and the pattern of breathing also suggests how much balance or imbalance the prana is. Okay, so pranasya ayama, stretching the prana in the body. I don't know whether you people have heard the story about Kaka Bhushundi. It was a crow who was a great yogi. In Ujjain Mahakala temple, there is a picture of this crow. Anybody has heard about Kaka Bhushundi? Anyone? Venkat? Or Dr. Ram or Dr. Shitij?
Sir, I heard because
What did
it's
you
near
hear?
Bhopal only.
हाँ बताइए क्या सुना है आपने उसके बारे में, काका भुसुंडी के बारे में?
No, I heard a story about actually he was in Ramayana also, I think.
हाँ
I don't हाँ तो कुछ ऐसी स्टोरी थी कि राम जी से वो बचपन में शायद when भगवान राम was very small, so he came into his room and मुझे बस इतना ही याद है, ज्यादा कुछ याद नहीं है, पर हाँ वो
anybody else? Anybody who has any idea about Kaka Bhushundi? So this crow survived many kalpas. Yeah, Monica madam.
So he was a devotee of Ram.
Yes.
And I think he was the one who told the story, who narrated the story. Kakbashundi was a sage actually. Somebody gave him a shrap and he became a crow, and he was a very intelligent. That's why crow ko bada intelligent bolte hai. And I think he was the one who narrated the story of Ramayana. That he will be born, Rama will be born, like that, to somebody. I don't remember whom.
Okay. Definitely he's connected to Lord Rama. He was a devotee of Lord Rama. And this Kaka Bhushundi, is a crow who had deep bhakti towards Rama. And in his deep bhakti and devotion, he would go into a state of trance. He would go into very deep trance states, samadhis, and such emotional surrender. When you go into that state, even Paramahamsa Yogananda has described when in Dakshineshwar temple he went into samadhi. You feel as if the air from the lungs has been sucked out. When a person goes into samadhi, the experience is as if the air from the lungs has been sucked out. So the breathing rate becomes extraordinarily slow in that state. So this particular crow would go in trances for months together, Kaka Bhushundi. So he was able to, by going into those states, he was able to take one inhalation in 6 months and one exhalation in 6 months. So 1 breath per year kind of a rate. So that he was repeatedly going into the states of trance, and the inhalation would just continue, and he would remain in that state. He would come out, he would again get into that intense thing. And so he survived many kalpas. So kalpa is described in Bhagavad Gita. So it says that 1 kalpa means when the whole creation from a big bang starts. It starts from 1, spreads, and then again dissolves. So the Purusha and Prakriti, they meet, and then they manifest. The Prakriti is manifested together, and then again there is involution, and the Prakriti is taken back by Purusha. So ये पूरा ऐसे खुलता है और फिर से पूरा बंद होता है. ये पूरा एक साइकिल को बोलते हैं एक कल्प. तो ये जो काक भुषुंडी थे वो कितने सारे कल्प he saw. So therefore the rate of breathing has been shown to be connected to longevity. So it says that the number of breaths that a person has, when he is born, are fixed. So if you see, in the day-to-day life also around you, the animals with shorter, respiratory rate have less longevity. Whereas the animals which have very slow respiratory rate live more. Human beings have 12 to 16 breaths per minute. A dog breathes 40 per minute. That rate is 80 per minute in case of a mouse. Whereas when it comes to an elephant, it is 9 per minute. When it comes down to a tortoise or a snake, it is 2 per minute, 1 per minute, or half per minute. So they live for 400, 500 years. Tortoise lives for 400 years. 2 breaths per minute. So in a way, we can see that there is some cross-sectionally, if we look around, there is a relationship between the species, its breathing rate, and its longevity. So the stretching of the prana, one is done by doing the hatha yoga practices by force. The other way is by emotionally culturing oneself and going into a state of expansion and samadhi. So here, therefore, when Patanjali says tasmin sati, he has already spoken about prayatna shaithilyam and ananta samapati. He is already talking about reaching a state of expansion and merging with the cosmos by achieving perfection in asana. So expanded state of consciousness automatically reduces the rate of breathing. Constricted state of consciousness automatically enhances and dysregulates the breath. So now just, there are literature where plethysmography has been done. They tied this onto the chest and saw the breathing rate in different emotional state. So the higher the breathing rate, the more the irregularity in a particular emotional state, the more is the constriction of the prana in the system at that moment. So the highest constriction that has been noted by people is, can you tell me which state of emotion was there the highest constriction of prana, that is the greatest irregularity of the breath? Anybody?
Fear, sir.
Fear. Wonderful answer. So fear is one state, where the breath followed shallow, deep, very irregular kind of patterns, and breathing rate became very high, and a state of, people say panic attacks. That is a state which is a marker of the greatest constriction of the prana in the system. So when you want a person who is prone to develop panic attacks, not to develop that, you want to prevent that, you have to devise practices which will initially balance the prana in the body and expand the prana in the system, because by default his prana has developed a habit of constricting over any kind of a stimuli. So constriction can become a habit. So I will show you the anatomical location of these various pranas. Whereas the further, higher constriction but lesser than fear, was noted when a person becomes sad. Sadness brings constriction, and then the next level of constriction, which was a very intense constriction, is noted in a state of anger. Anger, sadness, fear, these are three emotional states which are quite intense and instantly can constrict the prana and therefore can dysregulate the breath and increase the breathing rate and therefore reduce the longevity if you go according to the theory. And the subtler states like jealousy and all, they also bring constriction, but that is not very intense, but in a gradually chronic way it constricts. So in fact, when in the Indian traditions, a mastery of a person in the field of yoga was assessed by his ability to maintain stability of the breath in different states of mind. So the more grown up the person was, the more mastery he had over his prana. Having a mastery over prana actually means that mastery over ability to get constricted or not. Because if you get constricted, you cannot then control. Your breath has to get dysregulated. So in fact, in this yogic tradition, they would judge the growth of a disciple by just observing his breath at rest. Just you sit and I observe how you breathe at rest, and people will know everything what has been going on for years in your psyche. Okay, they will just observe the pattern of the breath, what is happening at rest, and they will know what has been going on in your psyche for many, many years. Now, the constriction and expansion is one aspect of understanding the therapeutic application of prana. The second aspect of it is that the person is born with a fixed level of pranic energy. Now, we had a very interesting discussion here where people told that the law of physical energy may not work on prana, whereas Dr. Ram said that law of physical energy will work on pranic energy. Correct? So there is some similarity and some difference based on my discussion with various gurus and based on my own analysis and understanding. My understanding is that a person, in fact, this is called as the energy model of prana. Energy model of prana that has been described in detail by Dr. Shastri in his book called Let Go. So Dr. Shastri was among the gurus of Professor H.R. Nagendra, who is the Chancellor of SVS University here. So he describes an energy model. Just a hypothetical situation. Just imagine, this is going to be very interesting. I want all of you to listen properly. A person A, born in a village, is born with 1 lakh units of prana for this life. Now, this pranic energy is stored at the root of his spine. 1 lakh units. Now, whatever activity that a person does throughout the day, based on his lifestyle, somebody brought about a point of lifestyle and prana. So his lifestyle is that he gets up in the morning, he goes into the field with his father, comes back, then goes to school or college, then he again goes to the field, feeds the cows, take them for grazing, comes back in the evening, and has food and sleep. So it is a very simple kind of a lifestyle. So with this kind of a lifestyle, every day, this person draws 10 units of prana to spend. Every day he draws 10 units of prana. So this way his lifestyle has been going on. As soon as the morning 5 o'clock kicks up, his prana from the base of his spine is released, and that makes him get up, and the prana is downloaded from that 1 lakh unit during deep sleep. So the battery is charged, and the charger is connected to that base of the spine pranic channel only in a state of deep sleep. If that connection, you cannot connect the charger to the plug, you cannot download the prana for the next day. So if the person remains awake the whole night, then that 10 unit that he had previous day, whatever units remain out of that only he can sustain himself. After that he will. So the downloading happens when a person goes into deep dreamless sleep. It downloads. Makar sthiti mein download hota hai. So his lifestyle continued like that. He finished his 12th standard there, and by then he was downloading 12 units per day. Now this person from a village now gets admission into bachelor's degree, is decides to do BCA computer applications. He gets into Bengaluru. He comes into the city. So when he comes into the city, he gets into the hostel, and then in the hostel, his normal clock biorhythm is by 9 p.m. this person has to sleep. Okay. So, but what happens is by his program, he gets up in the morning, draws 10 units, and after that he spends more time, with friends, going around, eating many things, sensory pleasures which he was not having in villages. So in a way, little bit overeats, more digestion, more energy is required. And then 9 p.m. he is very sleepy in his room, and then comes, his other batchmates come and they decide that today is a night out. So we are going to, first go out, roam around, have tea, then get a cigarette, then again roam around, then we will put on Netflix, we are going to watch one movie, and it is night out today. So this person's lifestyle doesn't allow that. He feels very drained and very difficult. So he creates a vacuum for prana. He stretches that 10 unit of prana and, somehow manages that, he able to do that. And then he sleeps. And slowly, over next 6 months, this kind of lifestyle continues. He gets into a habit of cigarette smoking. He, remains awake for a longer time in the night, gets up late, and the lifestyle has got completely dysregulated. He also has a girlfriend now, so spends more energy. So then, now what is happening is the amount of units that he is downloading now after 6 months, from 10 units, it has increased to 60 units per day. Now there his system has now set up. He is drawing 60 units per day because the kind of lifestyle that he is living, he requires that much kind of a prana. And the equation here is that the prana, if 1 unit is spent, on 1 kilometer of a walking or a kind of a physical activity for an hour of intense walking, 10 units are spent when a person is very much, into a state of raga and dvesha and the senses are attaching to the object. Please understand this statement. If the spent of energy of the prana is 1 unit for a walk for 1 kilometer fast, 10 units are spent if a person has a very strong craving for a cigarette and he smokes. It is not about cigarette. He has that much raga. Even if he, is very much attached to rasgulla, the sweet, and he eats it with lot of raga towards it. Okay, that one rasgulla also eating rasgulla. Now this is where the pranic law differs with physical law. What you are doing is you are putting calorie into you, but you are spending pranic energy. Pranic energy is not added. Pranic energy is depleted when you eat with lot of attachment, or when you repel something with lot of aversion. So avoiding something with aversion or attaching to something with lot of attachment emotionally. Because why this happens is the physical matter is connected to only to physical body, but prana has bilateral relationship. It is connected to the body on one side, but it is also connected to the mind on the other side. So the mind has a greater impact on prana than the physical body. Physical body also has an impact, but it is to a lesser extent. So when he in his village lifestyle, he was spending more prana due to actual need of physical activity, and for that 10 units were sufficient. But then you would say that how come, in village you do so much physical activity, you go to farms, you do farming, you do many agriculture, many things, you would spend more pranic energy there. And in the city he is mostly sedentary. He is just sitting in front of a computer, doing a computer course, watching television, watching Netflix and going with friends. There is no physical activity then. But you see, the pranic energy that he spends in the city is into 6. So this kind of setup has come, and now after 6 months, this particular person gets vacations. He gets vacation, and in vacation, this person now goes back to his village, to his parents. So now he gets there and looks at thing around. Everything appears very boring, and he is restless. When he sits, he moves his leg. Very restlessly, he moves his leg, cannot sit still. He roams around, finds out where he can go and smoke a cigarette, again goes in the field, smokes, comes back. Again, after some time, he's restless, takes another cigarette, goes, smokes, come back. There is no, Wi-Fi there, so he cannot watch Netflix, cannot do such things. night he is sleepless, he is restless. Why that is happening? And it has become a great suffering for him. Boredom. So boredom, according to pranic understanding, is that your system is downloading more than what you can spend. Now this person is not finding a way to spend this excessive prana because he has come down to his village. So morning he downloaded 60, and whatever he could do in that village, maximum at the end of the day, with whole restlessness, everything, he could spend only 20. Now 40 remain, and it is already night 12. What does the person do? So the person gets insomnia. So now understand that insomnia is the prana remaining that you cannot spend because of the lifestyle that has been followed till now. So he remains awake the whole day, whole night, he cannot sleep, he is very restless. He goes and masturbates, some kind of activity where he wants to just do something and spend his energy, gets tired, and then he gets sleep. So what I'm telling you is this kind of an understanding of the laws that govern the pranic energy in the body are different. So now my question to all of you is, the prana of 1 lakh unit that he downloaded that day, the 1 lakh unit is fixed. Now this person has got into 60 units. Another 40 units that were remaining, he spent that in smoking extra cigarettes. Now he usually would not take beer, but that night he went and had a beer also. So because that excessive prana that is coming, he wants to spend it out through sensory aversion, attachment, that kind of activity. And that is the reason that people get addicted to substances. Any substance, any activity, behavioral activity, gaming addiction, excessive indulgences in any kind of sensory activity is a compulsion that comes because the lifestyle is such that it cannot spend the prana that has been downloaded for that day. So pranic understanding of why addiction develops. Now this excessive prana creates a restlessness in the system, and it does exactly opposite of what Patanjali says. There will be no sthiram, there will be no sukham, there will be no prayatna shatilyam, there will be no expansion. It will bring more and more constriction there. So this is the understanding that I want to give, because just do not means that understanding that more prana you have, the more pranic food you eat that has more pranic value will give you more longevity and all is correct. But there is this understanding of this yogic prana that has a therapeutic implication. Now my question to you is, what should this person now do, to come out of this vicious cycle? If he goes back to the, city, from 60, it will go to 100, it will go to 120, it will just keep on increasing. And it is now proven fact, that people who smoke, who do such activities, their longevity reduces by 10 years. It just comes down. If a person taking certain amount of alcohol, it is known that alcohol reduces lifespan by 20 years. Otherwise, a person would have lived 20 years more. So prana is spent very strongly. So what is the way out in the pranic terms? How can this person bring a balance into that? So the equation that I will tell is E total is fixed. E daily is what he downloaded every day. ED comes from when he goes into deep sleep, he downloads. ED is equal to ES, E spent, plus ER, E remaining. ED, that is E daily downloaded, is equal to E spent plus E remains. Now this person earlier had E downloaded is equal to E spent. He was happy. Now in the current situation, his ED is more. It is 60. E spent is 20. E remaining is 40. Now he is not at peace. Now please tell me, How can you bring a balance in this equation now? Yes, Kshitij.
Either we should reduce the download or we should increase the spending, means to balance the equation.
Correct. Perfect. So, simple common sense is the ED that was initial 10, correct? When we used to live a village kind of a lifestyle, this ED has to be reduced. Whatever that is spent, now he has, that also has to be spent. Okay? But it should be spent in such a way that it is towards at least physical health. But it should be spent. Okay? Now, what is the way to reduce ED? Can anybody tell? How can I reduce my ED?
Before I answer that, I like to have, I'm struggling in my head. There are some questions that I have in my head.
Yes.
If I remember correct, the brain, when it is in the default mode network, it absorbs and spends enormous amount of energy. That's what we know. So I'm using that physiological marker to understand. I think this is a clarification for myself. To practice pranayama, to reduce your breath rate and extend the time of inhalation and exhalation, it requires energy, isn't it? I'm just wondering in my own head, person you described, probably he will spend more energy by doing deep pranayama. That's what my physiological common sense thinking. I want you to answer. I want you to clarify that.
I think, sir, you have given a very, very valuable input, and actually my discussion was going to go in the same direction that you have taken it. So here in this equation, there is one more point. ED is equal to E downloaded daily is equal to E spent plus ER divided by E expansion. Now, what is this E expansion? When the consciousness is able to expand itself, there is reduction of the ED. It is inversely related to ED. So ED is equal to 1 by E expansion. So as I told, Patanjali said that before Tasmin Sati, there should be Prayatna Shaithilyam and Ananta Samapatti. So this person, has to be first. He has to be given a lot of physical activity. Why? Because the E spent that is there, we do not want to spend it in Raga and Dvesha more, because that will be a vicious cycle. It will download more next day. Correct? But if he spends it, say, going to a gym or doing rigorous running or Surya Namaskar or some kind of physical activity, he will spend energy, but he will not be able to spend that much. But definitely, if it is a ratio of 1:10, then 1/10 of it will be consumed by enhancing his physical activity levels, where he is spending the energy, but in such a way that it is not maladaptive. It is towards his health. Number one. Number two is the use of the technique of yogic relaxation, expansion, and slowing down pranayamas. So this will have an impact whenever he is able to, do rigorous physical activity, then lie down in Shavasana and relax the muscles of the body part by part, and is able to expand beyond the body. As soon as the prana that is getting more constricted with faulty lifestyle expands, okay, it reduces the ED. Okay, so here you have to understand one thing, that energy expanded, prana expanded is inversely related to ED. And that ED expanded is also inversely related to the rate of breathing. The more you expand, the slower the breath becomes. Or it can be other way around also. If expansion is difficult, consciously slow down the breathing rate. Consciously just slow down the breath. I'm telling this as a remarkable tool to anybody who has craving towards any kind of substance. Just focus on slowing down the rate of your breathing to your maximum possible capability. Breathe as if nobody, the person besides you cannot see that you are breathing in or breathing out. The person should not be able to make out. Breathe in this way. You will be able to come out with any kind of vicious cycle that you have with any kind of addiction. Why that will happen is, slowly this particular technique will reduce your ED. What is craving? Craving is E spent. Craving is E remaining. ER is equal to craving. That ER only will tell you again and again, do this, do this, do this. Any compulsive activity that you have to do to spend your prana is ER. And that ER, many people what they do is they keep fighting with ER. There is no way out. You fight with ER, you try to suppress it, you try to divert it, you try to do anything with it. Ultimately, you will lose the battle. Because it is a vicious cycle. In fact, even to fight with it, you are using pranic energy only, and that will further increase your ED. So therefore, the approach here is very different. The approach is Sthiram Sukhamasanam, Prayatna Shaitilyam, and then the rate of the breathing has to be reduced. The rate means, in my personal experience, I am telling, I could reduce my breathing rate to 1 per minute. 30-second exhalation, 30-second inhalation, easily. Right now also I can. It doesn't take much. Little bit of some pranayama probably, but anybody who is healthy, who doesn't smoke cigarette or lungs are healthy, can easily do it 1.5 breath per minute. So why I want to tell you this is that nature has given us such a window, of freedom to play with our breath. There is no other system in human body where you have both voluntary and involuntary component merged so beautifully together. You leave control, it becomes automatic. You take control, you can literally stop it. But are we using these techniques? Are we using this power that nature has given us? Are we understanding the energies that are going on in our system, which are governing our activities? Are we doing anything, to gain mastery over our own energies? So mastery over the breath will bring a mastery over ED. Now this ED is very powerful. It is not only on one hand making you kakabhushundi, but on the other hand, it is also giving you mastery over so many compulsions that are there in your mind, which you think that have become a part of you, but they are not. So a tremendous sense of freedom and expansion comes in life if a person is able to spend, I'm not telling much, just 10 minutes a day. In the morning, 10 minutes a day. Your slowest breath possible, and you will wonder. You will take a single breath as slowly as possible, and the next 5 breaths will run like engine, they will be very fast. So this is not an easy task. पहला ब्रेथ आप लोगे वो 1 मिनट चलेगा, लेकिन उसके बाद के अगले मिनट में आप 1 मिनट में 12 बार ब्रेथ ले लोगे, इतना फास्ट हो जाएगा अगला वाला ब्रेथ. पर उसको धीरे धीरे you have to master that, and it is masterable, and you will see that your control is in direct proportion to your expansion. जितना expand होकर के करोगे उतना देर तक आप slow breath को continue कर पाओगे. The more expanded state you will reach in, the more relaxed state of body, mind you will reach in, the more you will be able to take that slowest rate of breathing longer and longer. So you will see a very beautiful, it is like a game only. It is like a feedback game. Your breath and your expansion, it plays like a feedback loop to each other. तो मैं चाहता हूं आप सब लोग ये गेम खेलिए. अपने ब्रेथ को शवासन में लेट करके आप देखिए कैसे आप इसको स्लोएस्ट ले जा सकते हो. Reach that point and then further let go. I am nothing, I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am nothing. Like these kind of affirmations you use, and expand more, and then see how you can just keep on stretching your breath. And that is what is Shwasa Prashwasa Gati Vicheda. This is the therapeutic application of this sutra. Okay, so this is how I want you to apply the pranayama into your therapeutic principles and managing the lifestyle. So now, with this is a deeper understanding. Again, I repeat, it may be my own hypothetical understanding, but it works. It works. It has worked for me. It has worked for my patients. So next thing here is that we know that the pranayama is the fourth limb, and it is the balance between the antaranga and bahiranga yoga also, and therefore it is the fulcrum around which the sadhana of a yogi revolves, and it is, as I told earlier, an objective marker of how much sadhana a yogi does. Watching the breath at rest, if a person is a yogi, he will be able to understand what has been going on inside you in your system for past few years. So here, once again, as everybody emphasized, this is a figure which again and again I will keep showing, because this is the model of integration that I want to fit in your mind. Okay, even when you are presenting the case, think of the patient in these ways. Basically, there are 5 basic elements and nothing else. These 5 basic elements have gross manifestation in physical body, and their subtler manifestation is there in the pranic body. And then their further subtler manifestation is there in the mind in terms of rajas and tamas. So gunas in the mind, pranas in the pranic layer, and doshas in the body. Dosha, prana, guna. Remember this formula, DPG. This is the understanding. Any patient that comes to you and you want to apply integrative therapy, first ask yourself, which dosha? Second, ask, which prana? What is the status of his prana? What kind of lifestyle? Third, which guna in the mind? You will be able to get into a kind of a understanding, holistic understanding of the patient. And if that understanding you are able to get it correctly, the solution to his problems will come to you naturally. You do not have to think. It will be sheer common sense. Okay? But you should develop this practice of looking at every patient in terms of DPG model. So now this prana, that is very intimately connected to the manomaya kosha, has 5 major ways which it governs in 5 different directions. It is the same one prana only. Prana is not different, and it is one plane of energy, but there are 5 modes in which it functions. So the first prana, that is governing the very process of the breath. It is the prana that gets feedback from all other pranas also, and its major job is governing the breathing process, and thus bringing that kind of a relationship of one prana to another and this prana to the mind. So that is called as the mukha prana, the main prana. And then the prana, you can see the blue arrow, one going straight up and the other blue arrow going straight down. So the udana prana is the prana that governs the upward moving physiological functions, the physiological functions that move against the gravity. And the downward prana is the prana that is governing the physiological functions that go with gravity. And then the prana that is there in the center, that is a circle you can see, is the samana prana. Now this prana needs the balance of these 2 blue pranas. The upward blue prana and the lower blue prana, if they are in balance, then this central samana prana will be functioning optimally. Now this is the prana which is the window of entering into the body's physiology, means the body's neuroendocrinological system. So here the process of digestion of the food is done, and if this prana is imbalanced, the food cannot be digested properly. It will create ama. That ama will get absorbed into the body, circulate throughout the body, and depending on the genetic link, will generate those autoantibodies, or you can call it oxidative stress, or you can call it dyslipidemia. Everything is ama. Your body is not able to digest it properly, it accumulates and then creates the symptoms of various doshas, either dryness or excessive accumulation of water, or fire, inflammation, or vata degeneration. Everything that happens is because of these imbalances in the samana prana that disturbs the digestion. And then the prana that governs the circulation throughout the body is the vyana prana. So surface of the skin, the touch sensation has to go to the brain, the motor activity has to happen. Everything is done by the samana prana. So the afferent and efferent pathways, they are all just going on periphery to center, center to periphery. This kind of functioning is done by the vyana prana. Upward moving actions, physiological functions like when you vomit, or there is a burp, or hiccups, these kind of functions are governed by the udana prana. This prana also governs the very thought process in the mind. Very thought process in the mind is also governed by the udana prana. And therefore, when a person is under stress, okay, he has a repetitive pattern of fast moving thoughts in his mind that is going on. So the prana, what happens is the prana throughout the body that is moving is fixed. Okay. So what happens is for that day you have downloaded, now in the day it will remain fixed, but it can be channelized from one direction to another. So when a person has stress, he has some intense thought, or he has become angry, the udana prana, in a force it hits up. You imagine, you are intensely angry. You can feel that the prana hits the head very hard. It just moves up. And when the udana prana gets accumulated in the head region excessively, you get a sense of heaviness in the head, and that brings headache. So any kind of pain is excess accumulation of prana in that part of the body. Please understand, any kind of pain is excess accumulation of prana in that part of the body. If it is more pinpointed, the prana is so high there that it has got locked up into that area. Okay, so the person is under stress. We all know that when there is more stress, you release cortisol in the hypothalamo-pituitary axis. From the cortex, there are signals that go into the hypothalamus, creates an imbalance in the neuroendocrinological pathways, and through that, we know that it can the vagal function, the parasympathetic activity gets disturbed, and the person's digestion gets disturbed. So stress, hypothalamus, vagus to gut. We clearly know when a person becomes stressful, he may get constipation or may get indigestion, because the vagal afferents will not give properly the signal. So here, understanding it in a pranic way, excessive udana prana has reduced the apana prana and disturbed the samana prana. So prana moved more up against gravity. So therefore the prana with gravity reduced. A lady went to a new place, got little stress, and next day she misses her cycle. So what has happened is, the prana in the head region, the udana prana, the thinking prana has become more, or she is emotionally hurt with something, the udana prana has become more, and therefore the apana prana, the downward moving prana, has got disturbed, and therefore there is a irregularity in her menses. Now, if this prana accumulate in any area, see, prana is basically life force. Life means sensitivity. If I am sensitive about things around me, I am alive. If I am insensitive, I am dead. Correct? So when prana gets excessive in any region, that region becomes sensitive, hypersensitive. So all hypersensitivity reactions are excess accumulation of prana. In fact, we call pain also as a hypersensitivity because everybody has different pain threshold. So it depends, how fast your prana accumulates into a certain part of the body, that much pain threshold you have. The more easily the prana will accumulate there, the lesser is your pain threshold. Correct? So, so how to increase the pain threshold then? It means your prana should have a stable structure. It should not very quickly just jump here and there. It should remain steady. Your prana should remain steady irrespective of the situations in your life. Your prana should not just jump here, go there, go there. It should follow a harmonious, rock solid flow. When will that happen? When in your mind there is samatvam. When you are able to maintain that state of expansion. When your breath also does not shake. So when your breath remains steady, when your mind remains expanded, prana also does not jump very quickly here and there. And that's why you have high pain threshold. Because you are doing dvandva anabhighata. You are crossing the forces of duality with stable prana. So therefore, the balanced structure of prana can help reduce pain. Now, please understand, any pain is excess accumulation of prana. Any hypersensitivity is excess accumulation of prana. So my prana gets excessively accumulated in the chest region. Now, a innocuous thing, like just cool air or some dust or pollen grains, bring cough. So hypersensitive cough reflex. Correct? That is what is asthma. I get bronchoconstriction in response to a innocuous stimuli. Why? Because my life force in that area is so sensitive. I am using a bulldozer to kill an ant. Correct? I am using a bulldozer to kill an ant. So that kind of imbalance, why that has happened? Because I am perceiving that ant to be so big. And why I am perceiving that? Because I have a magnifying glass of excess prana. Excess prana is distorting the way my cells, my immune system sees. So my immune system gets confused. It starts destroying the normal healthy part of the body. Why that has happened? There is excess accumulation of prana. It has made it excessively sensitive. So excess prana means magnifying glass. Small ant will appear like a dinosaur. And therefore, this will be perceived as a threat and the body will react accordingly. All autoimmune disorders are excess prana. And where is this imbalance coming from? It is coming from the head. It is coming from the imbalances that are generated by excessive udana or disturbed vyana or disturbed samana or disturbed, So, observing the symptoms of the person, we should be able to make out that this person has pranic imbalance or not. If yes, which direction of prana is more and which direction of prana is less. The law is wherever the mind goes, there prana goes. Wherever the mind goes, there prana goes. So a person has headache. I want him to reduce his headache. I see from the pranic language that there is excess udana prana. Now I know this law is there common, that prana follow this law with the physical energy, that it cannot be destroyed, it cannot be created, but it can only be channelized from one form or one direction to another. So therefore, from the head region, I want this prana to come down. If this prana comes down, this person will be able to feel reduction in his headache. So therefore, I will give a practice which will bring his mind to the lower part of the body or the lower chakra of the body. Okay, so I will focus on the lowest chakra to generate the highest potential energy for it to come down. So I will focus on the Mooladhara and I will teach him the practice of butterfly. So person bends his leg and starts moving his legs up and down. and I tell him, you keep your attention on the tip of your tailbone and continue doing butterfly practice. So what is happening is the lower chakra, that is the Muladhara chakra, is getting slowly activated. The prana that is accumulated in the Agnya chakra in the higher region here, the Sahasrara and Agnya, it is starting slowly to move and shift downwards. And as this prana moves down, this person, his digestion capacity will also become better, because the Samana prana will also, it will move towards Samana also. So he may have loss of appetite that may come up, or he may feel nauseated, that will reduce. And then the prana will completely reach the lowest chakra. After doing this practice for some time, I will tell the person to perform part by part relaxation of the body. First starting with the head, because here is the prana that is accumulated. Then coming down to the face, neck, chest, lower back. So just little bit tighten and release, completely part by part, so that the prana overall gets redistributed throughout the body. You cannot destroy this. You have to just redistribute the energy. And after that, as a preventive thing, not when he is having headache, as a preventive thing for him, every day I will tell him to do this kind of a butterfly, because by default his prana has a tendency to move up. See, please try to understand. We get into patterns, a pattern of thinking, a pattern of reacting, a pattern of situation that keeps coming in the life again and again. Because of this patternated thought process, we develop a patterned imbalance of prana. Same stress, in her brings migraine headache, whereas the same stress in him gives him a back pain, or the same stress in this fellow gives him acidity. So why that is happening is, the thinking pattern is such that that particular prana associated with that chakra is moving excessively in that particular direction. So here I want to tell you, these are the various zones in which this prana function. The Udana prana, you can see, is in the upper half of the body. The prana which is governing the breathing process mainly is in this region, associated with lot of emotions. Then here is the Samana prana governing the digestive function, and then the Apana prana that governs the lower areas of the body. So these are the zones, and the Vyana you can see is all around. It also carries little bit around the person also. Now these are the various chakras. They are associated with certain sounds also. So you can use these sounds also when the person focuses, or he can, if he is meditative minded, he can just focus on a particular chakra. If he is having migraine headache, I told him to focus on the tip of the tailbone. Now that is the point where you have to focus for Muladhara chakra. Then the prana moves. So wherever the mind goes, prana goes there. Wherever the prana goes more, chakra activation, each chakra is like a tap. Each chakra is a tap. You open, the prana flows through it. You close, the prana flow through it stops. Okay? Patterns of thought in the mind can put this tap on, excessively on, or can completely close it. Patterns of thoughts in the mind can work on a particular chakra of the body. Different thought works on different chakra. Simple example that I can give is, you just have some kind of a erotic thought, a sexual thought. We see that there is an increase in the blood flow to the genitals. Now, we have a scientific mechanism to tell, but simply what I can tell you is that the thought process is related to Muladhara. And therefore, it has governed, increased the pranic flow to Muladhara chakra. In the same way, you think of some, very emotional kind of a memory. You will see that there is a sense of constriction and expansion happening in the chest region, here in the Anahata. A person that you have been missing for a long time, and suddenly he calls, or you had been, having a very emotional relationship with someone, you had not been talking for many years, and suddenly that person called and you had been missing him. You see his phone and there is palpitation and there is constriction here. All of us have felt this. So why each thought, brings a sense of constriction, expansion, and a sense of physiological change. कुछ particular thought आए तो पेट में गुड़गुड़ होता है. So you can say, no, पेट लोग बोलते हैं कि if you have to tell some secret to someone, you cannot keep it in your stomach, they say. आप पेट में बात नहीं रख सकते. तो इसे समाना, ज्यादा सीक्रेट रखने से डाइजेशन खराब हो जाए. So what I am telling you is thought patterns have effect on your energy system in the body, and they can either loosen up the prana flow from that part. So if the lady is suppressing lot of emotion, not expressing her anger at all, and being too good to everybody but not able to talk out for herself, she will accumulate more prana in her anahata, because she is not expressing her emotions openly, right? She cannot say no. So this lady is more prone to become an asthmatic person. What happens in asthma? Each life breath you struggle, you cannot just breathe freely, because you are not mentally also free, right? So psychosomatic component is very strong. There is a very strong component of psyche, especially in non-communicable disorders where you cannot find any pinpoint cause outside. If there is no cause outside, there is cause within. And if there is cause within, please do not think that it stops at genes. Where does it come in the genes? It comes in the genes through prana. It comes in the prana through the mind. It comes in the mind through the karma, and the karma go deep from one life to another. Okay, so this is the way in which the diseases are manifesting. This is the way things are setting up. Okay, we can say that our limit, because we only understand the modern science, our limit is only up to gene, but now at the genetic level also people are trying to correct. But yogic science, the Ayurvedic science are even deeper. They go beyond genes. They go into prana. And further, into expansion and slowing down of the mind. So burning the deeper samskaras and preventing the accumulated sanchita karmas which are yet to manifest. There is a concept of karmashaya described by Patanjali. It says that this is the mool of the klesha. Klesha are avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, all those kleshas. The karmashaya is the mool. But when the karma is done without raga and dvesha, that is called as karmakshaya. And it can burn out the karma which is there already also. So therefore, this kind of very in-depth kind of understanding is there in yogic philosophy, which can be applied therapeutically. So in this way, we work towards developing the yogic modules in balancing the prana. So I will tell the person for prevention performing regular Nadi Shuddhi Pranayama, because all the pranic channels ultimately merge into Ida and Pingla and they open here. So you can balance all the 72,000 pranic channels. Right side 36,000, left side 36,000, and they get concentrated into these chakras from where they flow in and out from the spine. And ultimately the daily prana dose is accumulated in the kundalini at the root of the spine in your sacral plexus. Okay, and that is released every day, goes through these chakras, and depending on the pattern of living of that person, manifests each day through different chakras, and depending on the thought pattern in which the person lives the day, keeps playing like a veena. It keeps playing through these 7 swaras. These are the 7 swaras. This is the veena. Your spine is the veena. These are the 7 swaras, or you can call it a flute, through which you keep on playing the music of life every day. But you just do not know how to play this flute. If you knew how to play this flute, you would have had much better, quality of your life. And please remember that this flute is played by your breath. This is your breath through which you can play this flute of body. Bhagavad Gita, the shloka says, Prayana kale manasa chalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva Bruvor madhye pranam aveshya samyak satam param purusham upaiti divya. He says, depending on the pattern through which you have governed your life and the pattern of thought that you have lived, when you will die, the prana throughout the body will accumulate on one chakra. Depending on which kind of music you have played, it will accumulate, everything will accumulate in one chakra, through that hole, through that chakra, the prana will leave your body. And that moment will also tell how you have lived your body. Which chakra was playing the note throughout your body more? There are people who defecate and die. There are people who urinate and die. There are people who keep the eyes open and die. There are people who keep the mouth open and die. There are people who leave their body through sahasrara. The pattern of thought will keep knocking on the chakra every day. It will develop a pattern in the energy flow in the body. That pattern will play the role when you die. It will accumulate automatically. You cannot do in those moments anything. How you have lived, in the same pattern the prana will accumulate there, and from which chakra you have lived, yogi will be able to tell you which janma you are getting, what karma you have done, what is going to happen to you, which yana you will take, deva yana, pitra yana, asura yoni, deva yoni, everything will be told to you. So this dynamism, there is no escape. Every thought counts. So please live this life very consciously. Sadhguru says inner engineering. He talks about inner technology. I'm showing you the instruments of this technology. There is a deep technology into the system which we are no way close to. We are going on to the moon, we are going on to Mars, we have all the gadgets, but this breath, these chakras, these pranas, these energies, mudras, bandhas, is there any application, through which we can improve the quality of our life? So this particular figure, it shows that the pranamaya kosha is connected to manomaya kosha, which is connected to the annamaya kosha, and then from the manomaya kosha it comes to prana. It disturbs, the main prana, that is the thinking process, and the breath together, which disturb the samana, which disturbs the apana, amana, and then the same thing manifests physiologically. If you say is okay, autonomic nervous system imbalance, the vagal afferents are disturbed, problems in bowel contractility, over digestion, under digestion, wrong digestion. So these are the three ways in which the samana prana gets disturbed. Either the chakra will overactivate, or it will get closed, or it will get in a irregular way, it will open and close. So that is ajirnatvam, atijirnatvam, kujirnatvam. This is a psychosomatic phenomena which happens before development of any kind of disease. Okay, I am telling any kind of disease that you develop, if you observe carefully, there is a close association of either over digestion or loss of appetite, or there is improper digestion. If you are able to catch it here, please understand pranic imbalances are setting in. It has not yet become organic, you cannot diagnose, but they are accumulating. It will take months and years for it to actually bring the disorder, through that particular chakra. But you can, prevent it if you are aware that the digestion and the breath at rest can be an indicator. So therefore, these are the steps in prana: puraka, rechaka, bahya kumbhaka. This is another way in which you can regulate the breath. So Patanjali describes here, you can all see it. Bahya, antara, stambha, vrittihi. So either external, internal, or motionless modification. So you can slow down while breathing in, you can slow down while breathing out, or you can just hold it and stop. So these are the ways in which the gati vichcheda of prana has to be done. And this gati vichcheda, whenever it is done, whenever you are able to expand and slow down your breath, by default, Patanjali gives the example of a farmer By default, the prana has a tendency, the chakra have a tendency to come in perfect sync and balance, as Dr. Kshitij said, with cosmos. So health is given to us by default. By default, the prana has its tendency to come in balance. But we, with lot of effort, again and again, create disease. We put lot of effort in, brick by brick, we put, the things towards our own death. So we have to understand that health, according to yoga, is there by default. You don't have to do anything. You just have to slow down and expand. The fourth pranayama is transcending the external or internal. Bahya abhyantara vishayakshepi chaturtha. Now this is the pranayama which cannot be done. It happens in a state of samadhi. So you practice kumbhaka, rechaka, puraka, but the fourth one happens to you when you are in a state of complete surrender or samadhi or emotional expansion or in deep love. It just happens. You just can't breathe. You are just motionless and completely fulfilled from within. So this is the special one. It just resets your pranic energy throughout the body. Tata kshiyate prakashavaranam. So by doing the practice of pranayama, what happens? The blocks on the lights are removed. So what is this light? This light is your own Vijnana and Ananda. Your own Vijnana and Ananda. That is the light of insight, the light of joy, which is there by default within us. Light of Sarvadnyata, omnipotency, Sarvadnya Bijam. Patanjali says the seed of omniscience is within us. And that opens up from Vijnanamaya Kosha, and the source of joy is within us. That opens up in Anandamaya Kosha. And the thing that we have done to cover it up, by creating these deep imbalances, once the pranayama is practiced, those blocks are removed. The blocks or patterns that unsettle your prana gets reset, and then you are able to have a touch with your Vijnana Anandamaya Kosha, and the Prakasha, the light of Ananda and Jnana manifests. Dharanasu cha yogyata. And with pranayama, the mind then gets prepared, for the ability to focus. Otherwise, before this, you cannot have the mind that can focus and go into dhyana. So prana resetting is not there. See, if the body is not clean, you feel restless. If the prana is not clean, if the pranic channels are not clean, your mind remains restless. If the body is not clean, body remains restless. If the pranic channels are not clean, the mind remains restless. It cannot focus on anything. You get easily distracted if the pranic channels are blocked or they are imbalanced, if the chakras are not in proper sync. So therefore, the pranayama practice, which according to Patanjali is not anything that you do, it is simply shwasa, prashwasa, gati, vicheda. So when you do that, this happens. Your mind gets ready. You can do that while doing Narishuddhi also. I am not saying that, but Patanjali has not told that. He just said Gati Vicheda. By doing that, the mind gets an ability to concentrate. So indirectly, it means that the therapeutic application of pranayama is anybody with loss of concentration should be prescribed pranayama. ADHD is a typical example. No, there is no focus for anything. Pranayama can do. So they should be started with fast breathing practices, and then slow breathing practices should be added. And the ultimate aim you have to understand is, if you have done pranayama and before pranayama and after pranayama your resting breathing rate is same, then you have not done pranayama. your resting breath rate should come down. Your oxygen consumption into the system should reduce. You should be able to feel more relaxed. So we look at the breathing, not only the pattern, the rate pattern of the patient at the baseline, and then after they have done the regular practices for some time, we observe, and you will really wonder if you also start paying some attention within a week. Within a week, your pattern of breathing drastically changes if you do regularly just for 10 minutes in the morning. So there are now scientifically proven phenomena that have shown that the, you see the EEG activity in the brain, and it has been clearly observed that when you perform it regulated through the nose, the activity pattern is more intimately connected to the brain. Whereas when you clip the nose and do the same breathing pattern through the mouth, nothing happens. So there are receptors which are there in the nasal meatus, at the root of the nasal meatus, and through the olfactory bulb, okay, there is a direct communication with the brain. So anybody having blocked nose and feeling that I can do pranayama through the mouth, no. Pranayama has to happen through nose. Okay, so nose plays a very special role here, and it is connected to the Ajna chakra, also the root of the nose. So please understand that the breathing should be done through the nostril, and it is scientifically also now it is proven that we do not observe the same physiological effects by breathing through the mouth in the same pattern as we observed while breathing through the nose. So this olfactory bulb has shown now connections with prefrontal cortex, with amygdala. It has shown connection directly with the the precuneus, and they are in another way connected to the insula and other parts of the body, the olfactory bulb. So some more researches on pranayama. Slow deep breathing, 0.1 hertz or less than 6 breaths per minute. This is called as slow paced breathing. And also the inspiration to expiration ratio also should be low. It is known that while inspiration there is sympathetic activity, while expiration there is parasympathetic. When you do shallow breathing, it is more sympathetic. When you do deep breathing, it is parasympathetic. So 1:2 ratio of inhalation is to exhalation, and less than 6 breaths per minute has been shown scientifically to bring down these kind of physiological effects, where the pain threshold enhanced. This is just a scientific finding, but I in a yogic way, I explained you the whole mechanism, how it happens. So it is proven, it is a proven phenomena that by breathing slow, the pain threshold goes up. Then the locus coeruleus activity also changes. So this is a sympathetic activity that comes down. And then on the other hand, the faster breathing practices where you hyperventilate more than 80 to 100 breaths per minute. So it is well known that it activates sympathetic nervous system and upregulates the arousal through the Botzinger neurons. So a person who feels drowsy, less energetic, schizophrenia patient who has negative symptoms, patient who is depressed, cyclic breathing, hyperventilation, like in Sudarshan Kriya, they do Bhastrika Pranayama. Again, slow, medium, fast, slow, medium, like that. The pattern breathing in hyperventilation, it creates a state of dissociation. The mind dissociates from the body. The dissociative states can be induced by doing hyperventilation, and that enhances the pain threshold further. Okay, and it can bring arousal also. So very good for those who feel drowsy, whereas slow breathing is good for those who get insomnia. Then, so nasal but not mouth breathing, electrical activity in olfactory cortex, limbic area, recognition of emotional faces and remembrance was more during inhalation than exhalation. So the working memory, emotional working memory also functions differently. So you remember things better when you see them during inhalation than during exhalation, especially if they are related to certain emotions. So the emotional memory gets more concretized when observed during the inhalation phase of the breath. Then this another concept is the interoceptive awareness. So insula is the area of the brain which has repeatedly been implicated in various studies now. That is saying that the effect of the meditation, pranayama, in the ability to perform, the ability to understand the feedbacks from the body becomes better because they develop the internal awareness of bodily functions itself better. So this is the kind of interoceptive awareness which develops by doing pranayama. And this interoceptive training can help in reducing anxiety and brings more emotional stability. In fact, affective responses have also been attached to the breathing rhythms. I told you different emotions are associated with different patterns of breathing. Slow paced breathing help emotional regulation, both at the level of physiological and psychological levels. So by doing this, pranayama was a very important component of this module that we taught to elderly people who were little, they were all above 55-year age and they had some mild cognitive impairment. And in 6 months, what we observed is not only that the normal thinning of the brain reduced in hippocampus, it shrinks, in Alzheimer's and with old age, the size actually increased in people above 55. The gray matter, the hippocampus area increased after 6 months of pranayama practices. So thank you very much, all of you. This was the discussion that was pending for a long time and I wanted to have it. Now we have few minutes. We can you can ask question, we can discuss before we end. Thank you for your feedback, Dr. Kshitij, Monica madam.
There was one example which I just thought to share with you. There was one incident which occurs in Thailand cave. I don't know if someone remembers it. बच्चे फंसे हुए थे कुछ गुफा में एक काफी दिनों तक. So later on, when it was asked that how they survived in that cave, so it was because of this slower and deeper breaths only. I mean, they told in their interviews that we are just trained to have and we do pranayamas for a long time. So they just survived because of that. And it was impossible to survive in that situation. आप किसी गुफा में अगर फंसे हो बिना सांस कुछ हवा पानी के, so it was really difficult. So I just thought to share it with today's lecture. It is related to that.
Thank you, Soumya. So probably, they were able to reduce their metabolic rate by doing slow breathing practices and reduce oxygen consumption. Yeah, Dr. Kshitij?
As you told, sir, that excess prana at a particular place leads to hyperimmune responses many times. So can this mystery of, cytokine storm in COVID, which happened for a few people, can it be related to this in some way?
Definitely. I believe definitely, and it is the chest region which is associated with the Anahata chakra, and definitely this whole storm is coming from their own emotions. Okay, their own fear. Yeah, I believe that.
Dr. Hemant.
You see how differently people reacted to COVID. Some people were just in panic. Some people were taking it just normally. See, different psyche, and the responses also were like that. People who panic more actually became more ill. I think so. Yeah. Yes, madam.
Yes, you're right. I think now I can correlate to it because when we were in COVID duties, those who were those who were very restless and very, stressful, feeling lonely and scared, and some competitive, intelligent people who were there in the isolation COVID ICU, when they were more scared, so they got intubated earlier rather than those who, they were very relaxed and, they were all God-fearing, spiritual kind of people and were not scared. They didn't have the resting heart rate were not shooting up. And their saturation also used to improve after 2-3 days and we used to get them out. So I just noticed this during my COVID duty. So I used to stay, half an hour I used to give them, don't be scared, don't be scared. And I used to look at the monitor, how saturation is improving. And I used to wonder, like, those who are very intelligent and, Googling everything because they were inside, their saturation, it took us 2 months. There was one person, because he used to get, competitive with the saturation level of a new person, new bed around, you know. So, like this, I have observed personally in the ICUs. So I think it has to do with the chakra that you're telling.
Thank you so much. No better person than Dr. Monica, who is a associate professor of medicine in one of the most reputed institutes, AIMS. So, yeah, we all observe this in our clinical practice. Yes, sir.
I have a couple of thoughts. One is,
Yes, sir.
I think I need to listen to this lecture 3 or 4 times before I can clearly conceptualize myself. Please send a copy of that. I need to listen to that a little bit more.
Yeah, we will.
Thank
We will
you very
share.
much. Thank you very much. The other two very redundant thinking pattern was happening in my head. The redundant pattern was, there are 2 situations. See whether you can shed some insight. You talked about negative emotions, sadness, anger, fear, rage, jealousy, and the effect on the prana. And I had 2 situations in my mind. I just wanted you to explore those. One is what happens when a person is very happy, extremely pleasant, and joy. I think the circle and cycle is something different. And in addition to that, the mysterious thing happens in a patient with catatonia. Catatonia patients, as you know, that they are passive flexibility, they sit still, almost like in a samadhi state. So, samadhi versus catatonia, where is the problem? So I just thought I needed to ask your insight into that.
Yes, sir. A very interesting question. So in happiness, the breathing pattern was observed to be more rhythmic. It has a better rhythm than the negative situations, but it was best when a person was in a meditative state. I will be able to show a slide also. I'm searching that slide where I had different emotion and the pattern. Second thing is the catatonia. As we all know, that the psyche of a person in catatonia, he goes into catatonia because of intense fear. So it is the fear that is the core when a person goes into catatonia, and that is why when we give benzodiazepines, GABA, enhance the GABA tone and reduce their anxiety, these people show a dramatic response to lorazepam. So the breathing pattern, it would be very interesting to see, but I think that the breathing will be very fast, because in the psyche, if it is related to the psyche and prana, there is constriction, tremendous constriction of prana due to intense fear, so much constriction that the body has freezed. But in the mind, there is intense fear, and this will manifest in the form of a very high breathing rate. I feel that the breathing, if they are in that thing, will become very shallow. It will become very shallow but fast. It will not be deep at all, but the rate will be more, but it will be shallow. That is why it may not be that apparent, but it will be that kind of a breathing, I feel. Yes, so thank you very much, everyone, for your, So thank you very much, everyone, for your wonderful feedback, and I hope that you will be able to apply these principles into your clinical practice. And the test that we are supposed to take today, we will take it next week because it is delayed. And from next week, we will also, start the discussion on the next topic, that is another very important topic, that is stroke. Okay. So see you all next week. We will share some material with you. The test on migraine will happen in the next class. Thank you. Thank you.